Luke chapter 6, verse 43. If you got it, say, I got it. Luke chapter 6, verse 43 says, for a good tree bringeth not forth corrupt fruit, neither doth a corrupt tree bringeth forth good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit. For of thorns men do not gather figs, nor of bramble bush gather they grapes. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? That's the King James Version of the Bible. I would have left it there until I read it in the Message Bible, and it messed me up. Looked at it in the Message Bible, it says this: you don't get wormy apples off of a healthy tree, nor good apples off a diseased tree. The health of the apple tells the health of the tree. You must begin with your own life-giving lives. It's not who you are, not what you say and do that counts. Your true being brims over into words and deeds. Why are you so polite with me, always saying, yes, sir, that's right, sir, but never doing a thing I tell you? When I read verse 43, it messed me up. You don't get wormy apples off of a healthy tree, nor good apples off a diseased tree. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, pastor wants to use for a subject, there's a worm in the apple. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. There is a worm in the apple. We've all heard the saying that says, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. How many of you have ever heard that statement? Normally, when we say that, we think of the old adage of the worm in the apple. But today, I want to help you through scientific evidence that one apple spoiling the whole bunch is different from having a worm in your apple. Are you with me so far? Every apple has a chemical in it called ethylene. Every apple has a chemical in it called ethylene. It's inside of every apple. And some people will tell you that if you want your apples to ripen faster, then you put the apple in a paper bag with an avocado, and the avocado will make the apple ripen faster. Why would I add an avocado to my apple? And what is it about the avocado that affects something that it seems to be nothing like? Most people determine fruits and vegetables by taste. If it's sweet, we consider it a fruit. If it's green and bitter, we consider it a vegetable. But a fruit and vegetable is not determined by taste. A fruit and vegetable is determined by whether or not it has seeds on the inside. So a tomato is a fruit, even though some people think it's a vegetable because of the seeds it has on the inside. Well, then why would an avocado influence the apple? Because an avocado has a seed, which makes it a fruit, which means it has some of the same stuff in it even when it doesn't look. So then that means that other fruit then have ethylene inside of it. The avocado happens to be such one. that when you add it to the bunch, it will help to ripen a thereby presently unripe apple by adding it to the bunch. Given the right conditions then, and given enough time, one apple can ruin an entire bunch because the apple that is overly ripe begins to release this gas called ethylene, which then connects with the ethylene that is already in the other apples. And with the apple that has its own gas connects with the other apple. See, when you've got one bad apple, it exposes the other good apples to its environment and begins to release itself on the apples that are in close proximity. And the other apples may be perfectly healthy, but because they are in too close of a proximity to an apple that thinks it knows everything. You know, the overly mature person that knows it all, the person that's never wrong, the person that never understands that it could be somebody, it could be them, it's always somebody else. So you've got this one apple that thinks they know it all. They know why everybody does what they do. They understand it all, but they have nothing to show for it. And when you sit in the environment of the overly mature apple, although you are still developing, your life is aborted by the fact that you are too close to somebody who's admitting something into your atmosphere that is ruining your future. So then one apple ruins the whole bunch. And this sermon is not to encourage you today. It is to pick out of this tree of life this august body of people, because God has given me a vision to go to the next level. I can't take bad apples with me. And so what I'm doing by this sermon today is I'm going to determine before this sermon is over how many of you deserve to be in the bowl with me, and how many of you do I need to extract out of my atmosphere, not because you're bad, but because you don't know how to separate yourself from the bunch. Many of you are ruining your destiny, not because God is not developing you, but you don't have the courage nor the sense to separate yourself from conversations and people who are emitting a toxic gas on you, and you wonder why your money never changes. You wonder why your circumstance never changes. You wonder why you keep coming to church and you keep praying and you keep fasting and nothing changes. It's because the moment God gives it to you, you're going to go back to an unhealthy environment where the person who's overly mature will ruin your destiny, and God will not give you his virtue for it to be ruined by somebody who's valueless. And so you have a responsibility today, before this sermon is over, to determine if you are suffering from overexposure to people who are emitting things in your atmosphere that's preventing you from growing. Because remember, the person who's already overly mature, or who thinks they know it all, who already has the answers, they don't understand that they're poisonous. But you've got to ask yourself, what in my life has ever come good by being connected to this? When has this person's advice ever led you to prosperity? When has this person's conversation ever informed you about anything that would help you according to your destiny? When have you ever been invalued by their presence? If you look at it truthfully, everything they've ever done for you is subtract from you. And yet, you're so addicted to the Kool-Aid that they'll come, and out of your nosiness and necessity to understand and be nosy and hear gossip, out of your necessity to devalue your mind, you come back into that environment so you can be in the know, and not understanding that being in the know of the ignorant is still not to know. That a person who knows nothing can tell you nothing. that a person who has not yet accomplished anything doesn't have any advice for you. If it works, it ought to work for them before it works for you. I didn't come to encourage you. I came to separate the wheat from the tare. I didn't come to encourage you. I came to find out if the bad apples in the room will have more power than the ripe apples that God wants to use. There are some people in this room today, you have seeds of virtue on the inside of you, but you don't have the energy to separate yourself from the bunch. You got to always be in the know. You got to always be in the crowd. You got to always go out for drinks. You got to always be at the club. You got to always go to the restaurant. You got to always be at the table with 10 liars. You got to always go after church, out to dinner with someone. I need somebody who's going to be okay by being by yourself, because in order to get where you got to get, you're going to have to stand on your own. Whenever I see people who always have to be in crowds, I find them worthless. And they found their value in the counsel of the ungodly. Oh, it's Bible. It's Bible. Lord, let me slow down. That most successful people are often by themselves. And average people always got somebody to go out with. Average people never have a problem going out to find somebody to go with them, because there's so many of them. Average people, all of their friends answer the phone every time they call them, because average people don't have busy schedules. Average people can always find somebody to drive out of town with them on the weekend, because they have no plans for the weekend. But when you're going about your destiny and going about your business, can't nobody call you Saturday night about something they want you to do Sunday morning. I've already got my life planned, and the way my life is set up, I don't take last minute appointments, because I've got a destiny to reach, and you cannot get me to abort my destiny with your temporary thought process. So I want to find some real people. I want to find some real people who have conversations about destiny and not destinations. People who understand that when you get rich, you don't take vacations. You live where you want to go. Y'all missed it. You missed it. You missed what I said. You missed it. I said, when you really become wealthy, when you really become rich, you don't go on vacations. You buy houses where you want to go. You want to go to Mexico, you got a condo there. You like LA, you buy one there. I'm trying to show you how to think at the next level, but you won't get it when you in here. When you in here. And let me tell you something. When people bring you garbage, they are saying to you indirectly that you are a garbage can, which is why they always dumping mess on you. They show you what they think of you by what they bring to you. That's why nobody brings some of y'all mess, because they know if they bring you mess, you're going to put them in check, because you're not a garbage can. You are a person of destiny, and the only thing you have room for inside of you is something that is valid and valuable. Slap somebody and say, quit bringing me that mess. And when you are around overly mature people who admit this gas into your psychology, I call it a conversation. They admit this stuff into your atmosphere. Understand that after ripe comes rotten. After ripe comes rotten, which means that it's best in this season of your life to be unripe, so that as you develop, you walk into your ripe season, because after ripe comes rotten. And when you are rotten, you are good for nothing. Your current condition is environmental. Are you in a group, a circle, a group chat? With nobodies. You spend all day texting in groups of nothingness. everybody's phone is blowing up because one person responds and it goes to everybody who doesn't care. And now we're sophisticated because now we got apps, GroupMe, and all this other kind of stuff that everybody's communicating in, and nobody in your group is doing anything. And you wonder why you're going nowhere. Because if you're in a group with somebody who's going nowhere, you're going to get there at the same time as they do. I'm trying to fill my circle up with millionaires. I'm trying to fill my circle up with billionaires. I'm trying to fill my circle up with people who've already been where I'm trying to get. I don't have time to spend 6 hours a day talking to low budget thinking people who have no dreams, no aspirations. And I'm not telling you to think how I think. I told you this sermon wasn't for everybody. This sermon ain't for everybody watching online. If you don't like it, turn off the television. I'm talking to somebody in this place today who has destiny on your life. And knows that sometimes in order to get there, you got to come out. The Bible says sometimes you got to come out from among them. I've never seen anybody who can eat two of these at the same time. You've got to separate yourself. For the next 20 minutes, I need you to make up your mind that in this next season, you're going to be okay with not being important. And what good is it to be important to people who are unimportant? You are important to people nobody cares about. You are important in circles that nobody knows about. And it is not that you don't have the power, nor the gravitas, nor the education, nor the swag, however you want to put it, to be in another echelon of life, but you don't want to separate yourself because there is comfort in the crowd. That you're happy that every time you call somebody, somebody has an answer. That every time you call somebody, say, hey girl, I need you to ride somewhere with me, that somebody gets up. Let me tell you, when you're on your way to the next level, you'll call somebody, they'll be so jealous of you, you ask them to ride with you, they won't have time because they'll be thinking about your new car, your new house, your new man. They'll be too jealous to ride with you. And guess what? You get in your car, you put on Luther Vandross, and you drive all the way by yourself. And then on the way back, you listen to Trey Songz, be as ratchet as you want in your own car. You don't have to explain nothing. You can say what you want to say and then get right to church and say, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. You know, there's a blessing in being by yourself. Slap somebody, say there's a blessing in being. When you by yourself, you can say what you want to say, do what you want to do, go where you want to go. Slap three people and say, go by yourself. You go by yourself, you won't have so much explaining to do. Some people are so narcissistic that they have to advance and alarm everybody at what's transpiring. You've got to be okay being to yourself. I didn't come to make you smile. I don't care if you get mad. I'm mad already. Because I'm sick and tired of seeing the average people taking the virtue from extraordinary people. I want you to step away from the crowd. I want you to be okay with your phone not ringing. I want you to be okay with nobody inboxing you. I want you to be okay dating yourself. I want you to be okay eating at the dinner table by yourself. I want you to be okay not being in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standing in the way of the sinners, nor sitting in the seat of the scornful. But your delight shall be in the law of the Lord, and you should meditate on it both day and night. You shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Slap somebody, say, I'm by myself this time. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't care what you think. If what you thought was so valuable, why hasn't it produced any fruit? Living with your mama's self. Living with your daddy's self, having a sugar daddy with your sugar daddy self. What have what you thought ever done for you? No life insurance having self. No health insurance having self. I'm trying to get you how to think higher. You are taking advice from people who don't even have health insurance. It's tight, but it's right. And if you mad, smack yourself. Your friends are your friends, not mine. You picked them. Don't be mad at me. You picked them. Touch your neighbor and say, smack yourself. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I look at so many gifted people wasting talent. You've got so much talent and you're wasting it. You've got so much glory and virtue and you're wasting it. And you're mad at everybody else except you. And everybody in your life you picked. And you mad at them. You gave them your number and you mad at them. You gave them your address and you mad at them. I could understand if they broke in. If they hacked your phone, you gave them the number and you answered the phone when they called. And when they didn't get you, you called them back. Maybe God's way of showing you that it wasn't supposed to work was that you were unavailable. I remember, is Roz Johnson here? Is she here? I remember I called Roz one time. She was working at the post office and she had sent something to us, and I called her phone, called her back. Me and my wife were having something at the house and she was bringing something to the house, and I called her and her voicemail says, I'm changing some things in my life. And if I didn't answer the phone or I don't call you back, you're one of those things. I thought it was amazing. Most people thought it was rude. I thought that was the best voicemail I'd ever heard in my life. If I wasn't a pastor, I almost changed mine to that. But I didn't think that'd be good for the saints to hear when they called me. If I'm helping you, say go deeper. So that's the one apple ruins the whole bunch thing. But let's find out how this worm gets in this apple. A worm nesting inside of an apple did not crawl into the apple. No, it did not. The worm that's in the apple was born in the apple. Because there is something called a maggot fly, or what you call a fruit fly, that in the summer it invades the orchards. They land on top of the apple and they have a tube on the bottom. The female has a tube on the bottom that she, like a mosquito, injects the apple, lets her eggs off in the apple. Are you with me so far? Lets her eggs off in the apple, and the egg is born a worm. How does a fly give a worm? Because humans have humans, dogs have dogs, cats have cats. How does a fly, a maggot, oh, there it is, a maggot, you know, that thing that feeds on something else. How does a maggot get the opportunity to drop seed but can't be identified by it? Because the maggots in your life will come into your life, drop something with you, and then hide because they don't want to be identified by it. They'll give you information, but they put it in a position where it can never be traced back to them. So who's the maggot? Oh, don't get quiet. Just don't say nothing then, but say ouch, say something. During the summer, the fly lands on the apple, injects the eggs into the apple. She stabs it. Little worms come. A fly injects a worm. The fly gives the apple something that it cannot be identified by. That's when you know you got a maggot. When somebody brings you something that they don't want to be connected to. Some of y'all got some maggots in your life. I'm getting ready. They'll tell you stuff, but they'll kill you if you tell anybody. They'll pull you over in the corner and say, come here, let me tell you something. And then they tell you everything they think they know. Slap them right in the face, say maggot. And let me tell you why. Because when the worm is born, it begins to eat the flesh of the apple. And when the apple falls from the tree, the apple doesn't fall, all right? When the apple falls from the tree, the maggot the egg turns into a worm, and that's why you've never seen in a character of an apple in a cartoon, you've never seen the apple, the worm crawling into the apple, you've always seen the worm crawling out of the apple. It's a true picture because when the apple falls to the ground, the worm crawls out of the apple and crawls into the ground, because once it has eaten you, it's finished with you. And I'm telling you that you've got some worms in your life, and once they finish eating on you, they're going to leave you right on the ground. You think they care about you because they brought you information. There is a messenger of Satan came to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. When my foes, my enemies, even my foes, came upon me to, it's biblical, eat up my flesh. Do you know what the white part of an apple is called? That's called flesh. Are you here with me? But I can't get to the flesh until I get under your skin. And so what they are doing is they are embedding themselves in your life, eating up your flesh. And once they are done with you, they're going to crawl out of your life and leave you half dead. And I'm wondering if you are suffering right now from an overexposure to worms. Touch somebody and say, there's a worm in the apple. Underneath your flesh, underneath your skin, in your head, in your house, in your mind, in your marriage, eating away, slowly but surely. And when they're finished with you, they're going to crawl right out of your life and go find another apple. Ask your neighbor, are you suffering from worms? When I was growing up, my mother used to say to me, she said, boy, do you got a worm? My mother used to ask me all the time. She said, boy, do you have a worm? I would say, Mama, I don't know. Ask her, she right there. She always say, boy, you got a worm. Why? She said, because you're always hungry. Oh, so worms eat what was meant for me, leaving me hungry. Y'all missing this. You've got worms in your life because I keep filling you up every Sunday and Tuesday, and yet you're still hungry because you got worms in your life. All of this words you get at this church, all of this words you get Sunday and Tuesday, and you don't have what you've been dreaming for because the worms ate it. Touch somebody, say the worms ate it. You're not happy because the worms ate it. You have no joy because the worms ate it. You have no friends because the worms scared them off. Everything that comes in your life to feed you, the worms eat. So I ask you, do you have worms? Because every time you eat, you're talking about, I'm hungry. Every time you get a paycheck, you're saying, I'm blessed. The worms are eating it. You get a paycheck and you're still broke. You know why? Because the cankerworm, I wish I had some Bible readers in here, but God told me to tell you that if you will trust him, he's about to restore the years and give you everything back that the cankerworm has stolen, that the moth has eaten. Touch somebody and say, it's coming back. There's a worm in the apple, right underneath your flesh, eating away at you. And you're wondering, what's going on? You let somebody land on you. You let them inject you with something they can't be identified by. And now it's eating you up, and you can't blame them, because worms don't look like flies. So you can say it's them, but in the court of opinion, it's you, because what you've brought to me doesn't look like what you're blaming. Does this make sense to anybody? So what am I talking about today? I'm talking about your thoughts. That this is your apple. Your mind is your apple, and you let maggots in it. And your flesh are your thoughts. So you have no thoughts because they were consumed by the flies. You ever ask a teenager, what do you think? I don't know. They don't think. They don't think. One of the most frustrating things to an adult parent who has teenage or young children is the fact that they don't know nothing. They don't know anything. Not true. They do know what they want to know. They can sing every song word for word, but can't remember that you told them to take the garbage out last night, because they too have worms. Their mind is being eaten by peer pressure. And the truth is, most adults won't admit that they're under peer pressure too. You think that peer pressure is a child thing. It's not a child thing, it's a childish thing. And you can be grown and still be childish. When I thought as a child, Paul was a grown man when he said, when I was a child, I thought as a child. He wasn't talking about numerically, he was talking about psychologically. When I thought as a child, that's where he starts off. When I thought as a child. But when I became a man, when I start thinking like a man, I didn't become a man until I started thinking like a man. You can be a man and still think boyish. There are a lot of adolescent men in the world who are 40 years old in age and 12 years old in thought process. There are a whole lot of women who got houses and children but are still little baby girls because of the way they think. And I've never seen a society so inundated with grown children. You know how you're dealing with a child? You're dealing with a child, and you know you're dealing with a child because they want to play by themselves, and whenever you touch something that's theirs, they say it's mine. They want everything for themselves. They never want to share. They want to take the ball outside. They want what's yours, but they don't want you to have what's theirs. That's childish, because a child thinks everything belongs to them. Well, at least I told you up front what I was feeling. At least I ain't try to trick you and think that I was gonna make you happy. At least I told you up front. I wasn't talking to all of y'all. At least I told you that. Didn't I keep it real up front? It's the same with your thoughts. Something landed on your head, injected its offspring, and the fetus was your thought. You are being told what to think by the people you listen to. This is so good, I'm gonna preach it to myself. I said, you are being told what to think by who you listen to. You don't like certain people because of who told you about them. And you're missing out on a valuable relationship because you listen to somebody who ain't worth nothing. You do know that only people of a certain caliber understand fine things. See, a person who's wealthy will bring you something you think is valueless, but they understand that the value is not necessarily in the picture or the portrait, but who painted it. That a line painted on a sheet of paper by Vincent van Gogh is more valuable than your little child. It is not about the line, it is about the instrument. That sometimes with a lack of ability to instigate, or the lack of ability to know, or the lack of exposure, you can walk past something that has no value and put a limit on it because of your exposure. And some people can never, listen, and you will never, this is something for everybody in here, you will never understand anything that's outside of your exposure. That what you think is an idea of a good hotel, somebody else wouldn't sleep in for one night. Because it's all about exposure. That your dream car right now, somebody wouldn't be caught dead driving, because it's all about what you've been exposed to. The neighborhood you want to live in right now, Oprah Winfrey would slit her throat if she had to live in it, because she's been exposed to so much more. Are y'all listening to me today? Bill Gates, if he woke up tomorrow and had Oprah Winfrey's money, he'd kill himself. You missed what I just said. Oprah Winfrey may have $3 billion, but he's got 80. So if he woke up tomorrow with what she had, He commits suicide because he's been exposed too much. So then that lets me know that when you're okay with little, you don't have big exposure. That when you've been exposed to small things, you will be okay with small things because small things look big in small eyes. I want you to get out of your circle. I want you to get away from these maggots. I want you to get away from these negative people. I want you to get away from these low-thinking people and go find you somebody who's doing something and say, I don't have what you have, but if you'll just invest a few hours a month in me, I promise you I will not be a waste of time for you. The first day I met Bishop Jakes, my wife will tell you, I was in a restaurant. He was sitting at a table with some other pastors who are elite pastors in the world. My wife said, go speak to him. I said, I will not. She said, why? I said, because he's eating and I don't want to disturb him. I said, I'm nobody. And if somebody come and start talking over my food right now, I'm going to look funny because I'm acting funny like that. I don't like folk talking over my food and stuff coming out of their mouth. I'm just done with everything. Here, you can just have it all. Because the one thing I see come off your lip, anybody like me, if I see one, just one iota of anything, I don't know where it went. I'm assuming it went in my stuff. Take it all. I'm not hungry no more. Anybody who with me? I don't like it. I don't like when stuff I just can't stand it. So he was over there eating. I told my wife I ain't going over there. I promise you she could finish the story. I'm getting ready to get up and walk out, and Bishop Jake stands up at the table and says, you, come here. In that voice, he got that voice, and I look. He said, no, you, come here. I came over there. I looked him out of, we were so close that his stomach was touching mine. He had his glasses down on his nose, and he looked at me and said these words, you've been praying and asking God to meet me, haven't you? I said, yes, sir, I have. I said, as a matter of fact, I got a book at home right now that I wrote out 7 years ago that one day I'd meet you somewhere, and you say that. And as a matter of fact, my mother has been praying since I was 14 years old that one day we would be connected. So I want to thank you for being obedient to God. He says to me after those words, he says, all right, call me. He says, but don't waste my time. And he walked off. And I said to my wife, I said, what in the world is wrong with him? How am I going to call him? I said, how? How am I going to call him? But where there's a will, there's a way. And if I would have listened to the maggots who would have told me that it would have never happened, if I had to listen to the worms that told me that I'd always be a small Baptist preacher, had I listened to the negative people who had never been outside of my neighborhood, I would have been right where I was. But because I gave all of the worms an exit out of my life, and because I was okay preaching by myself, and because I was okay ministering by myself, and because I was okay if no other preachers liked me, because I was willing to get out of the bunch, now I got a whole bunch of people who want to join me. If you want a crowd, separate yourself. Would you make sure that they tweet that today and put that on something? If you want a crowd, separate yourself, because you got to separate yourself from the crowd so that the crowd will see that you're worth following. You are not going anywhere when you are surrounded by people. You are only going somewhere when the crowd is behind you. I got to get this sermon. I ain't started it. I got 6 minutes. Proverbs 4:23 says, watch over your heart with diligence, for from it flows the spring of life. That word heart is mind. You got to watch over your mind, because out of your mind flows ideas and prosperity. But you're not going to have ideas if you don't watch it from the flies. Your mind, your fruit is full of flies, eating away at your mind. And you related to some of them. Sometimes your flies are inescapable. This ain't for everybody, I done told you. I preached all the rest of y'all Sunday, but today I'm looking for some real people. I'm serious. I'm serious. Somebody slap 3 people and say, separate yourself. Watch over your mind. I don't let people mess with my mind. Everybody on my staff knows that when I'm getting ready to preach, I don't want to hear nothing negative. They all know it. They won't tell me nothing negative when if the quickest way to get gone off on it, I know it ain't a word. You want me to go off on you? Come and try to mess with my head when I'm getting ready to minister. I will let you have it. Because I got to reserve my mind for what I'm getting ready to say. I don't need to know what you know when I'm about to say what I know. I guard my mind. Certain times of the day, people say, Pastor, you didn't answer your phone. I have to let them know it was intentional. It was not accidental, because I know what your conversation sounds like. And at this season, what I'm getting ready to do, I don't need to hear it. Fact of business, what people say to you is only half of what they say about you. Because you better believe what I'm getting ready to tell you. Anybody who will talk to you about somebody else has already had a conversation with you to somebody else. You better believe that. If you don't believe nothing else I told you, when somebody comes and tells you about somebody else, you best believe they've already told somebody about you. That's a maggot. And then they get mad because you don't want them around you. Don't get mad at me because I've identified you. Get mad at yourself. How many of y'all know what I'm talking about? Don't let those people knock you off of your block. Don't let them knock you off of your square. What they're trying to do, they're trying to get you to come back and let them lay back on you and start putting more eggs in your head and eat up more of your time and energy. I was telling a young man today, I had a meeting with a young man today. I said, I'll let you go everywhere. Everywhere I go, I'll take you with me. I said, everywhere I go, I'll let you meet millionaires. I'll let you meet all kind of people. I said, you think I'm going to waste my time giving you an opportunity for me to introduce you to the extraordinary so you can determine to be average? I've got somebody else for that spot if you don't want to be nothing. And I meant that. I meant that with my whole heart, because there is nowhere in the world that you ought to take it. If you got the opportunity to be around somebody who's doing anything worth anything and you still going to be average, you are not worth the opportunity. You are not worth the opportunity to say, Lord, one day introduce me to Warren Buffett. You don't want to be around Warren Buffett, because by the time he finishes telling you what to do, it'll be so far from what you are capable of doing. Don't you waste anybody's time. If you don't want to do nothing great and they're doing something great and you want to be average, go find somebody average to have a mentor with. Don't you waste anybody's great time with an average thought process. I meant that. Did you hear what I just said? I'm talking to every person in here. Don't ask God for an extraordinary opportunity for you to trifle it on the ground with trifling behavior. When you have an opportunity to be around somebody great, take it serious. When God sends somebody to speak into your life and give you an opportunity, take it serious. And if you don't take it serious, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. Did you hear what I said? You do not deserve it. So, I'm getting ready to show you how to get these flies out of your head. You want that? Because see, most people want the sermon to be over. They want to know they got flies, but they don't want to put the work in. Let's talk about how to get rid of these worms. All right, the first thing you got to do is watch for pests. You got to watch for pests. See, in our house, I have an exterminator come every 3 months because I don't want to see nothing. Who's like me? I don't want to see an ant. He don't pay no rent, so he don't get to come over unless I invite him. I don't want to see no roach. I for sure don't want to see no mouse. If I see a mouse, I might consider moving, because both of us can't be here. Now, what most people do is they're looking for the pest. You don't determine you got pests by looking for the pest, because they're so evasive you may never see them. So you have to look for what they leave behind. Do I need to quit or should I keep going, Pastor? So now when you're looking around your house, you don't look for the rat, you look for what the rat left. So when you look at your life, you don't identify whether you got rats by looking at the rat. You look around and see how much mess you got in your life, and that'll prove to you that you got fleas. The mess in your life proves that you got worms. Because varmint are so trifling that they will defecate anywhere without excuse. If you got mess in your life, you got mice. Somebody say watch for them. So here it is. You got to watch for pests. You got to check your field often. What's your field? You got to check your mind. Are you thinking more negative this month than you were last month? Are you snappier this month than you were last month? If you really police yourself, you'll realize something off. I'm going off too much. I got an attitude too often. Anybody want to be out? I'm not feeling, I'm just snapping for no reason. If you'll check your field. Most people won't check their field. They'll just blame everybody. They just getting on my nerve. You got to check your field often. You got to know the growth stages of the pest in your life. You got to know the number of insects and diseased weeds or insects you have in your life. You got to know how many crops or thoughts that are affected by the pest in your life. You got to know how much damage the pests have caused in your life, and whether the problem with the pest is getting larger or smaller. This is what a farmer does to his field. This is why this apple was worth selling, because somebody paid enough attention to this one apple to make sure nothing ever landed on it. This apple, just this one apple on a tree with hundreds, maybe thousands of apples, they paid enough attention to that tree to make sure that not one fruit fly landed on it. If the truth be told, some of you all have some bananas in your kitchen right now. You've been swatting at the flies for 3 days and ain't threw the banana away. Help me, Holy Ghost. And you're around here like this all day while the source is still on the counter. And you're never gonna get rid of the flies until you get rid of the fruit. And throwing it in your garbage can inside does not help. You got to take that mess. Somebody ought to help me up in this place. Get that mess out of your mind. Get it out of your heart. Get it out of your house. Get it out of your conversation. Stop covering it up. It's not going to do anything. So when you check your mind often, if you check it often, you'll see the damage. Number 2, you got to know what kind of pest you got. You don't put raid down for mice. So some of y'all, you gotta identify what's eating you. Oh God. You gotta identify what's eating you. You're in a relationship, it's eating you, praying, but what you need is a breakup. You see what I'm saying? You're using the wrong medicine. You need to break it off. You don't need to pray. This ain't good for you. You're gonna keep praying, but it ain't never gonna get better because you're handling the problem with the wrong. Preach, Keion. I will, because people don't like this. They don't like this, Keion. Why don't they like it? Because people don't like to admit that they're wrong. Why don't they like it? I don't know, but it's just me and you today. Are you good? I'm good. You good? Well, let's be good together. I just had to do it because they just looking at me like I'm talking. But I know I got you right where I want you. You're guilty with your guilty self. You can look at me all day. Right now, you just ought to just start smacking yourself upside the head with all these flies flying around your head. You ought to just start anointing your head with oil. And by the way, Psalms 23 says, "Thou anoint my head with oil." Well, why did they anoint the sheep's head with oil? Because every sheep would have nasal flies fly into their nasal cavity and eat their brains. So since sheep don't have defense mechanisms, they will beat their self. They'll beat their head on the ground because of the fly in their head, not killing the fly, but killing themselves. I'm wondering how many walls are you beating your head up against trying to kill the fly, and you're going to be the casualty. And so what the shepherd would do is anoint the head. He would literally take the sheep, pick the sheep up, dip it upside down in the oil, because flies don't land where there's oil. Flies don't land where there's oil. If you would get some anointing, you could deal with your flies. If you get some Holy Ghost in your life, you could deal. Three people already left. I don't care. I knew what it was for. I'm going to help y'all. See, let me tell you something. I don't care when flies leave. Flies leave when the mess is gone. And that's the problem with some of y'all. You think that people are leaving you. Those are flies. I got to stop. Okay. Number two, know what kind of pest you have. As soon as you decide the pest problem, find out what kind of pest it is. Knowledge determines the treatment. All right? Here's the first thing they do to keep flies off of fruit. They surround the plants. Maury knows this because she's a gardener. They surround the plants with flowers that naturally keep the pest away. So sometimes you can plant a flower next to your crop that gets rid of the flies. So then that means that in your life, you need to intentionally allow some people in your life who will keep the people out of your life that don't need to be. You need some people in your life who won't always tell you what you want to hear. You need some people in your life that will tell you that Negro is no good. And I'm telling you right now that when he does what I know he's going to do to you, but see, some of y'all don't want that in your life because you like having flies. And anybody tells you about the flies, you start making excuses for the pest. And every one of them have ate you out of house and home. The other thing you have to do is you got to burn diseased crops so the pests won't spread to the healthy crops. Next thing you got to do, if the pest is an insect, you got to use a natural enemy, an insect that eats pests. I remember when I first came to Houston, my wife and I had rented a house, and one of them doggone lizards crawled in the house. And Paige woke up in the morning screaming. I ran up there with my Bible. Hell yeah. We were going to have a prayer meeting. Brought all 13 chapters. Went upstairs with my Bible, and she's sitting in the middle of the floor screaming, and I look, and it's one of them things. I called the people the next day. I said, you gotta come get them. I want what you got. Ain't nothing you can lay down. Y'all ain't got no powder, nothing. You know what they told me? Said, sir, you don't want to get rid of them. They're the reason why you have nothing else in your house. See, when you see the geckos crawling on your house, it's because you got a lot of pests at your crib. Y'all not here with me. And the more of those you see, the more of a bug problem you have. Y'all not talking to me today. And if you get rid of them, the bugs will take over. So sometimes God has to put people in your life. You may not want them, but you rather have them than the pest. And God has some people in your life that will tell you the truth, and they don't care how mad you get them. How many of y'all got some folk in your life that will tell you the truth? They don't care how mad you get. I don't care how mad you get. I'm telling you right now, it ain't gonna work. I'm telling you right now, it ain't gonna work. Because you have to grant somebody in your life the ability to tell you something. You have to. You have to. My mother, let me tell you something about Gwen Scott. She gonna tell me right and wrong. She don't care how old I am, what I got. She don't care who anybody think I am. She still be trying to grab me. I'm like, woman, what is you doing? But although I'm an adult, she always has permission. Because every year I get older, she gets older. And so no matter how grown I am, she's always much growner. So she has the ability. And the time that I didn't listen to her. Ain't nobody else in here ever had a fly in your life because you didn't listen to your mama? The time that I didn't listen to her. See, your mama be knowing. She'll tell you it's a fly when it's still a worm. Y'all ain't hearing me. She'll tell you what it's gonna be. She'll tell you what it's gonna develop into. Now it's up to you. How many of y'all got flies because you didn't listen to your mama? Holla back. Some of them looking at me like, Rev, shut up. This sermon should have been over. It's almost over when you get it. I ain't worried about you. I'm worried about them flies. Touch somebody and say the apple has worms. Here's your last point. Be careful with using pesticides. Because the pesticide will kill the pest, but it also will poison the fruit. You have to be careful with pesticides. There was a story on Ripley's Believe It or Not about a girl who was growing grass in her backyard. You know, everybody's on a health kick now, so if you go to Jamba Juice, they got that grass up there. I don't want to. Anybody drink the wheatgrass stuff? I'm good. I'm straight. I didn't like eating grass when I was a kid. I'm sure ain't about to drink it now. I mean, I don't want no grass. I never heard God say, and this grass shall be given to you for the blood. I've never seen him feed grass to anybody, so I don't want it. Y'all can have the grass. As a matter of fact, eat all the grass you want. Folks doing other stuff with grass, but that's a whole nother story. So the grass. All of a sudden, everybody interested in living in Colorado where it's 35 degrees below zero. You ain't moving to Colorado because it's beautiful. It's about the environment. Everybody's sick. Everybody can't see. They got cataract. Everybody got back pain. It's chronic. I know. I know it is. Oh. What was I saying? What was I saying? The grass. So this girl was growing grass in her backyard. Her neighbor had mice. So her neighbor would come out every morning and spray the fence line with this rat poison. She would go get the grass the next day, put it in her blender, drink the drink. This went on for several months. She couldn't find out why she was bleeding in her stomach. She eventually dies. They do the autopsy and find out that she has rat poisoning. Because the pesticide will take care of the pest, but it also ruined the fruit. So you have to be careful using venom to take care of your pest. Because when most pests come in your life, you spit venom and evil words about what they're doing to you. But you got to understand that when you spit evil, you're going to have to eat it. And then you'll die too. I don't care what they did to you. I don't care how they left you. I don't care who they left you for. I don't care what they took from you. Do not spit venom because it's going to kill both of you. When you spit that evil poison, trying to kill your pest, you eventually got to eat your words. They ain't getting away with it. You think God is going to let somebody get away with harming you? You don't trust him enough to believe that vengeance is mine? Rachel, you don't know that God really got your, you don't have to spend your time. How can you be superior to the rat when you talk on his level? Or how can you be bigger than the worm? The worm crawls on the ground, so in order for you to talk to him, you got to lay down. The Bible says the serpent is under my feet, that we ought to tread on the head of the serpent. Your mind is being eaten by the pest because you didn't take care of the field. And you didn't watch, fight, and pray. You just fought and prayed. You didn't watch. You didn't watch. You got to be diligent. I watch for flies. I can identify them. They can't give you eye contact. I can identify a fly from a mile away. They look away when you're looking at them. They get nervous in your presence. You used to see them all the time. Now you don't see them no more. That's because when you get done with the mess, the flies leave. And you got to let them jokers know. I know what you're here for. You got to make it known that you are not going to be a part of this life that God never intended for you. I sincerely believe, as I finish this sermon, that your mind is a field. Your mind is a field. Your mind is a field. And you get to choose what you plant in it. It's your field. It's not mine, it's yours. If you want to prosper, plant prosperity in it. You want happiness? Guess what? The fruit of the Spirit. But you can't plant these negative people and expect joy. It's your field. I'm going to say like any good parent would say at the end of a conversation with their child, I done said what I got to say. My wife will tell you, I tell our children, from the smallest to the oldest, I'm never going to stop loving you. Now, you can't do nothing to make me stop doing that. God forbid, and I say this with all sincerity, if one of my daughters grew up and they decided that they wanted to be on a pole on TV, I ain't never going to stop loving you. Oh. Truth be told, your mama loved you through some stuff. Oh, hallelujah.